Welcome to another edition of Valley Newsline. Hello, I'm your host, Ron Whitlock. Well, folks, it looks like the border wall beside the Rio Grande River is going to be built, with the mayor of McAllen, Richard Cortez, saying, quote, "We don't need to wait for the future to tell us we have lost," referring to the battle against the federal government's plan to build the wall in our community. The recent flurry of activity on the border wall along the Rio Grande River started when, at the beginning of May, an Department of Homeland Security memo and map was leaked and became public. The map showed where the Department of Homeland Security intends to build its wall, apparently right through the Rio Grande Valley of South Texas, with almost one continuous 20-mile stretch going from Los Indios to Brownsville. The memo leaked, along with the map, stated the Department of Homeland Security has already designated the locations along the southwest border, to quote that memo. After learning of this apparent shift, reversal really, in the government's promise to consult border officials and business owners before any wall plans would be made, the Texas Border Coalition, whose members include elected officials and business owners, rushed to Austin to plead there for help from Texas House Speaker Tom Craddock and Texas Lieutenant Governor David Dewhurst. After receiving promises of help, they then expressed their outrage towards the Department of Homeland Security and its Secretary Michael Chertoff at the Agriculture Museum in the state capitol.
I am very proud to join the members of the Texas Border Coalition, Chairman Foster, and those that are here today, as well as my fellow legislators and other guests working hard to oppose a wall that we neither want nor welcome on our Texas border. Texas is connected to Mexico via 23 bridges. Through these bridges, we maintain our centuries-long blood ties and friendships with Mexico, as well as our growing trade and tourism that benefit this state and this entire country. While our international bridges were built to better connect us, this wall was serve solely to divide us. This wall is an affront to our cultural, our trade, and our freedom by the federal government, especially by the United States Department of Homeland Security. I was handed this by Chairman Foster, and I'll read it. It says, "I do agree that where you have a significant river as a national obstruction, fencing is not necessarily the right solution." And that was Homeland Security Secretary Michael Chertoff, Lincoln Juarez Bridge, Laredo, Texas, February the 21st of this year. So they're not following what they're saying.
We met in February of 2007. Is that right?
Yeah.
February 21st. March 2007, U.S. Border Patrol Customs comes out with a map showing where the proposed fencing is. That is without any stakeholder meetings. Okay, the proof is in the pudding right here.
The Texas Border Coalition represents all the mayors and county judges and economic development entities from El Paso to Brownsville. And we stand here before you today more united than ever on a mission to protect the Texas border. As the group of people, communities, and landowners that live, work, and raise our families on our nation's southern border, no one wants border security more than we do. However, we support border security that is smart, takes advantage of our natural geographic barrier in the Rio Grande River, and does not repeat the mistakes of the past. Building a wall along the Rio Grande accomplishes none of these goals. The Texas Border Coalition met with Secretary of Homeland Security Chertoff twice this year, and the Secretary made it clear that he understood that the Texas border with Mexico was unique because we are the only state that has a river as a boundary line. And as such, what works in Arizona may not work in Texas. The Secretary also enlisted our support to help him obtain a legislative fix he needs to give the Department of Homeland Security the flexibility to use a virtual wall made up of cameras, sensors, and other non-physical barriers. There are a lot of issues at stake. Private property rights, the millions of dollars that we invest in hunting, fishing, and birding industries in Texas, not to mention our own border communities. Furthermore, there have been years of local, state, and federal cooperative work on improving the Rio Grande. which can all be for naught, because any construction along the river can affect runoff and might even alter the flow of river, which then has international implications. Therefore, we are here asking our state leaders who have a stake in this to help us in Washington to achieve the right kind of border security that works for Texans, and is consistent to our national security goals. I'd like to take this opportunity. The city of Eagle Pass last Tuesday was impacted with a tornado. Equally as well was our neighbor in Piedras Negras. The governor of Coahuila, Humberto Moreira, came into Piedras Negras within 2 hours after the event, as were the state officials in our great state of Texas. The governor of the state of Coahuila has finished his work in Piedras Negras, called yesterday morning, and as we speak, this is the headlines in the Zócalo. Governor Moreira has sent equipment and manpower to help our community in the United States overcome this tragic event. We have a unique relationship with our friends, neighbors, and family members in Mexico, and we do not want to do anything to jeopardize that relationship in the state of Texas. One of the biggest issues is these monies could be used to clean up the scenic and historic Rio Grande River. Here's a picture. You can see a canopy of cane and salt cedar, and you can clean that up with these same monies. And again, that would facilitate Border Patrol. You don't have any individuals hiding in the cane. We gain water that is being lost through transpiration. And again, from the municipalities who use the river as their principal source of water, for municipal use, it would help the cost of water treatment. So again, cleaning up the river, we feel, is a priority, that these monies could be allocated to that end and leave a positive impact for generations to come.
So we stand opposed to this border wall. It is not something that may, in this case, it does not make good friendship. And we have a wonderful relationship with our neighbors in Mexico, and we always believe that we are two communities that are united by a river and not divided by a river.
The wall is just an expensive solution to nothing. The reason you see so many people here from the Rio Grande, from all the border communities, is because we have worked long and hard along the border to develop a good relationship with Mexico and to increase trade and to do what we can to make our border communities safer and stronger. And we feel that this wall is going to tear down a lot of those efforts that have been made over the years. We best know what should happen along the border because we live there.
We think it's just unbelievably foolhardy to attempt to build a wall along the southern border of this country as it relates to Texas when we have a perfectly natural barrier that works for us. We think that the really sad commentary on this whole issue is that the federal government has neglected the opportunity to clean this river up, to provide the access to the river by the Border Patrol. I know that working with the Border Patrol for many years that they would love to be able to get down on this river and patrol it. If you've been to Laredo or any other border communities, you know that that's impossible, that the cane and the salt cedar have infected the border areas so badly that you can't get down on the river. It becomes a natural hiding place for people trying to cross. I believe that if we have a very bad result with Mexico, with the congestion of the border, the economy of the entire state is going to be negatively affected. We know that retail trade and that cross-border commerce is one of the fundamental values of our economy of Texas, and without it, the state of Texas will not do well. So why does the state of Texas have a dog in this fight? It's because it affects our livelihood, our ability to be successful as communities, and we think that we should be up front and on the front step of the Capitol complaining about the actions that is being taken today.
With the new map of designated spots where the border wall is to be built along the Texas-U.S.-Mexico border leaked and creating quite a stir, Texas U.S. Senator John Cornyn and Border Patrol officials held a public meeting with stakeholders in Brownsville in order to hear the public's view on the issue and dispel any myths.
One of the key words that we have to keep in mind in trying to come together to achieve a common solution is flexibility. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. We have only survived since we stood up as an agency legislated by Congress in 1924 through our flexibility, and just add that partnerships. We could not have done this without all of you.
Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Legal versus illegal immigration, there are two different things. and we're going to do everything we can to assist you in those endeavors to help you do your job to make our border more secure, and therefore your grandchildren and my children have a safer place in which to live. The concern that we had is in Washington, Mayor Cortez, Mayor Heil, Mayor Foster, and several others of us that went. We had a wonderful meeting with Senator Cornyn, Senator Hutchinson, and Secretary Chertoff, and we left there feeling very, very positive that we were going to be heard and listened to. Secretary Chertoff then made a subsequent trip to Laredo, and we've had several meetings with other leaders since then. And the onus or the main turn of those speeches was, you are involved, we're going to be listening to you. So when the memos dealing with technical infrastructure were released over the last several weeks, needless to say, there was some miscommunication on the part of our federal leaders, who had told us one thing, and it appeared that another thing was being done. We did all we could do, which is raise our voices, contact our leaders, contact our representatives, and let them know that this is something that, in any shape or form, the wall issue was just something that was not acceptable. But I want you to know that we're here to work with you, sir. We're here to work with the Senator, with everybody. We just want to make sure that our interests are addressed and taken into account, because we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
My biggest concern is that apparently someone in Washington, the Congress, the U.S. Senate, the President has signed off, and orders have come down to the men in green, the guys on the line, saying, build us so many miles of fence. What bothers me about that, Chief Colburn, is that up to now, I understand, nobody knows where this fence is supposed to go. And it concerns me that you're being ordered to spend billions of dollars on fencing without having designated problem areas. Now we're looking for areas to put this fence. That's a backwards way of looking at it. And the message is not for Border Patrol and the people that we support at Homeland Security on the line. It's for the decision makers in Washington, Senator Cornyn. We need your help to educate those folks up north who have no concept of what's going on at the Texas-Mexico border. Those congressmen from both parties and senators from both parties, from New York, from California, Nebraska, they don't know what life is like on the border. And it is a waste of money to tell these men in green, build me $12 billion worth of fence over 300 miles of Texas-Mexico border, when we haven't really established a need. Ultimately, a fence is not going to lessen the workload on Chief Garza's people, because when they dig under that fence in the thick river brush, or when they climb over that fence, we're still going to need a man in green to apprehend and process this individual.
Senator, how many billions of dollars did they say it's going to take to build the fence?
I don't know. It's
Billions.
That's the irony, Bill, is there wasn't any money appropriated to build. Your point I agree with, is that we have to have the right combination, the flexibility to figure out, is it more boots on the ground? Is it the technology that we are using in Iraq and Afghanistan, the ground sensors, the night vision technology, the unmanned aerial vehicles, those sorts of things, and perhaps in some hard-to-control areas, some physical barriers, tactical infrastructure. But the idea of building 700 miles of a fence and then patting yourself on the back and saying, congratulations, you just secured the border, is just ridiculous.
Well, look how many people, you know, the unemployment would go way down if they spend that much money on hiring Border Patrolmen. And how many could they hire with that amount of money and pay them for years and years and years?
Did H.R. 6061 change the condemnation eminent domain laws of the United States?
Did not. It did not change the Constitution, which of course
and the Constitution
protects private property owners.
And right to go to the river, because we own water rights. We have rights to fish in the river. We have rights to do all of that. All of those issues are going to be addressed either in federal court or at the table of us talking about how we make it work for everybody, because we're all in agreement. We don't want anything illegal happening. We sure as heck don't want a bomber to come in. We don't want anything bad to happen. These are our kids on the streets.
Some of you that have questions, but we really need to wrap it up.
I'll be real brief. My concern, I'll let others who are more eloquent writes you, I guess, since you're not giving the public time to talk to you, about what it's a wall, a fence says to our neighbors to the south, what it's saying to the valley economy when 40 to 50% of the retail sales come from there. But I'm very active in the ecotourism wildlife watching business down here. And wildlife watching brings about $145 million to the valley. And you're aware of this, Senator, but you may not be. And we worked for years and raised millions and spent millions of tax dollars creating the wildlife refuges, National Wildlife Refuges units in the Rio Grande Valley. And there's many, many ways that you can protect our borders. And I know everyone in this room and out in the hall, we don't just expect, we demand our borders protected. But you can do it without building a fence and destroying Fish and Wildlife Service habitat, World Birding Center habitat, other habitat along the river. Your idea of getting rid of invasive carrizo cane is fantastic. It's everywhere. It runs from here to Del Rio.
No, I'll just, give me a second.
We're going to have CBP officials stay back for the meeting.
1 second. We have literally turned the night into day along the Rio Grande with the lights. People across the river see those lights. What do? They go around them. If we construct a fence, it's going to be visible. They're going to go around it. So that money that we're going to be spending or propose to spend is going to be wasted. It's going to be wasted. There's no doubt about it. Either they'll dig in, crawl, or go around.
The meeting you just viewed seems to have disheartened some business people and landowners who say their views were not heard by Senator Cornyn and those who called the meeting. What came out of the Brownsville meeting is an apparent steadfastness on the part of the Border Patrol, which says it intends to build the wall as directed to them by the United States Congress and the Department of Homeland Security. The Border Patrol insists it will hold more meetings with locals before the wall is finalized. However, in contrast, United States Senator John Cornyn now seems to be changing his position on the border wall, which he voted for, but now seems to be pushing more for a virtual wall with cameras and sensors and technology. Cornyn's new emphasis is now on cleaning up the river to provide better access and visibility. This is in line with what the Texas Border Coalition was encouraging in Austin. Now at the state capitol, I talked with members of the border legislative delegation in Austin and asked for their response to the troubling news of an apparent rush in the building of a wall in their districts, which is now being finalized without their citizens' approval or input, and what message it sends to the people in Mexico and Central and South America.
So it is a complicated issue. And we have a knee-jerk reaction of just bringing the worst and trying to create fear in people. That they, instead of trying to deal with this issue on a more, what I like to call a three-pronged approach, dealing with security, dealing with visas, dealing with immigration reform, and dealing with the labor force that this country needs, we just said, build a wall. The wall is not going to work. It's a waste of money. And I guarantee you that I saw a cartoon where on the other side of the border, they would build a 10-foot wall. Well, guess what? They were building 11-foot ladders.
I'm against the wall, okay? It's not good for business, and it's not good for our people. There are better ways for us to be going about restricting the criminal element coming from Mexico, restricting the large numbers of people who are coming across. And those things can be addressed in Washington. Every time in our history of the Western world or even the Eastern world that you build a wall, it never succeeds. You try to keep out the Mongols and the horde, the barbarian tribes, either in England or in China, it never worked. You just go around it or you climb over it or you tear the wall down. It's just not efficient. My prediction is that if that wall goes up, it'll come down within a short period of time. Most of the business community is telling us it's not good for us. The harder we make it for Mexico to have relations with us, the worse it is for both of our countries. We have to admit a fact, and that is that we are connected at the hip, literally connected with Mexico, and if we don't assist in caring for each other, both their economy and our economy, both their political infrastructure and ours, then we're going to pay for it eventually. Building walls, making expensive political statements are not assisting anybody. And regardless of what happens in Washington, D.C., Mexico, and the water, the air, the people, the diseases, they're going to come across this border, and we're going to have to deal with it. We can't wall our problems off. We have to confront them, embrace them, and address them. Immigration is an important matter, and the crime that has been brought about by the increased drug trafficking, that's of primary concern to myself and to many other people. I don't like what it does to our communities. I don't like how it affects either the politics or the people in our communities. But that's very different from Al-Qaeda terrorism, where people are trying to destroy our country, our entire system of government, everything we believe in. So yes, we need to have security, but the real security problems that we face on the Valley and most Texans feel is the increased drug trafficking and what it's doing to our people and to our children. Our gardeners are not people that we have to be afraid of.
Honestly, I'm truly devastated by the fact that that wall is not only a thought in people's heads, but they're making plans for it to become a reality. The impact in our state in terms of tourist dollars, in terms of investment dollars, overnight would just take a dramatic hit by that wall. And I'm really concerned about the message and the symbolism behind a wall. And if you look at history, walls have not fared well in terms of international relations with those who construct those walls, nor has it fared well with the society's feeling as a whole about the people on both sides of that wall. You're not going to stop illegal immigration unless you have a guest worker program, because there are no opportunities in Mexico currently. They sacrifice their life most times getting across the border to work for peanuts, because that's the only option they have. It's either that or die. It's either that or their children don't have food. So they're not in fear of getting arrested. They're not in fear of spending time in jail, because that's a sacrifice they're making for their family. If we truly want to invest our dollars in a wise way, let's work with Mexico and have the Mexican government invest in their working class people, and so that they have opportunities in Mexico. And if there's still some that want to come and work in the United States and provide that atmosphere and culture for their children, let's create good, reasonable, responsible work relations programs, worker programs for those that want to come and be here legally. And because let's face it, Texas, United States, we're a country of immigrants. Unless you're an American Indian, at one point your family came to the United States looking and searching for a better life. So why at this point are we closing the doors on future generations that also want to come here and do positive things? So let's work and invest instead of putting a wall which has a negative impact on our economy, creates a symbolism that can hurt generations of international relations between the United States and Mexico. And face it, the symbolism that it's sending to the world, not just to Mexico, is that we're elitists, we are in prejudice against our neighbors, and we're not willing to invest in countries the way they've invested in us. Because, I mean, if you look at the economy of the United States, of Texas, especially on the border, those dollars are coming from Mexico. South Padre Island, San Antonio, the outlets in San Marcos, all along the Rio Grande Valley. You go in there and you ask those shop owners and those people in retail who is spending the most money, and they'll tell you those Mexican nationals that come over during Christmas and come over during Semana Santa. Do we want them to go away? Absolutely not. Would it be devastating? Extremely.
With so much of the ruckus on the building of a border wall, I hope we've caught you up somewhat on its current status as of this recording. I don't feel that the fight is over and our community is lost. The louder the voices in opposition are, the more they will have to be addressed to the federal government. They'll have to be addressed before the clear message is sent to our neighbors to the south, and I encourage all watching to voice your opinion on this wall, pro and con, by speaking at public meetings, writing your congressman or a newspaper, or writing us at feedback@valleynewsline.tv. Thanks for watching. Till next time, adios.